WNHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven. Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Follow us. And yeah.
Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make the Elm City and the Nutmeg State tick. Mark Greenberg is looking to make our state tick without falling apart at the fiscal seams. Mark is one of two candidates in Tuesday's Republican primary for the position of state comptroller. The comptroller oversees the state's books, cuts the checks, and keeps an independent eye on where the money's flowing and going. Mark is running against endorsed candidate Kurt Miller, who recently appeared on this program. Welcome back to WNHH, Mark Greenberg.
Thanks for inviting me back, Paul.
And thanks to New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. So we're one day away from August 14th. You've been working on this for months for the chance. You know, we got so many contested races this year, although you're the only contested race that doesn't involve an open seat. The Democratic comptroller, Kevin Lembo, is pretty popular, I think. Is in office, so Democrats don't have a primary, but you're bucking around against them. Why do you guys feel, if you do, that that position is vulnerable?
Well, anybody who's in office for the last 7-8 years during this administration is vulnerable because this last 7-8 years have been disaster for the state of Connecticut. So my opinion is that he's very vulnerable. He's the only one who didn't see the writing on the wall, frankly, about running again as a incumbent.
He did see running on the wall against running as for governor.
Well, he did. He saw the writing on the wall and dropped out of that. And frankly, I think he should not bother running for the next 4 years because I think he's been a rubber stamp for the last 7.5 years.
Well, Mark, you've been on this show before and had a great time talking to you last time, getting to know you a bit. I thought maybe we wouldn't go back over that ground, who you are. You have a background as a real estate professional. For decades, you made a lot of money in Northwestern Court of the State. You've run for office a bunch of times, and you had a fun cameo role in the Rowland corruption trials in that you were the person who said no when he tried to enlist you in a corrupt scheme, even though you're friendly with the guy and you testified against him. So that's the bio part. We got that out of the way. What I thought was interesting about having you in today, Mark Greenberg, is that you've put together a 9-point plan for the state. And that is the way I felt we could talk about some of the issues facing the state, not just your race.
Sure.
On today's program. I know David Stemmerman's put out a similar kind of plan. He's running for governor. So are you up for that?
Sure.
Little
Absolutely.
1 to 9. Anything else did you want to talk about? Or?
No, we'll talk about your program, and I'm here to answer
But
your
it's okay.
question.
I mean, if I'm missing something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
You're the last interview, so.
Excuse me?
You're the last interview before tomorrow.
All right. So lots at stake here, folks. Ready? Okay. So, Mark Greenberg, you have a 9-point plan, and there are definitely specific ideas in it as well as sort of overarching general stuff. Your first one's kind of general. You say a top-to-bottom audit of all government spending. That's what you'll do. And, in fact, that's in the job title of the comptroller to monitor the books and report to the public, so to be an independent watchdog. I'll release the audit's findings to the public and highlight wasteful spending. So my question to you, Mark, is, isn't that the kind of thing every candidate says without having to be specific about what is wasteful spending, what tough choice you'd make that would get someone angry? You're saying something no one could disagree with was, I'll look at what's wasteful.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody says it, but who does it? And who has 40 years of background behind him to put his money where his mouth is about it? We're going to go line by line. We're going to find excess spending. We're going to find waste. And I'm going to point it out, in a book of indicating what's wrong, where we're going wrong, where we're not spending properly, where we're wasting money, completely wasting money. And furthermore, I'm not going to be a rubber stamp for the spending that has occurred. So, and by the way, I'm not doing this to be reelected in 4 years. I'm not doing this because I need a job. I'm doing this because I'm scared about our state. Mm-hmm. This state has gone from first to worst, and this last 25 years has been disaster.
And I mean, people can argue about certain aspects of that, but because we do still have among the highest incomes in the country, we have high educational attainment. We rank in the top 5. But to your point on indebtedness, on our continual budget deficits, the kind of stuff you'd be looking at as comptroller.
Right.
You got up to $2.5 billion deficits. So William Proxmire, does that name ring a bell? You're looking to do like a Golden Fleece Award? You're going to have a little fun with
I do
this?
remember. I'm a senator. I can't remember what.
He's one of my Wisconsin, I believe.
Yeah.
He was one of my first favorite people to watch in politics coming up just because I love the Golden Fleece Award. I thought it was substantive and fun.
Well, here, the first thing we're going to try to do is cut 10% off of $20 billion. That's what we spend this year.
Comptroller can't do that. Comptroller can point the way.
No, but the controller can sit at a desk and say, this is the way to do it.
Last time you were on, you said 15%.
I don't remember saying 15.
Maybe I said 15.
10% is the first year.
You. Okay.
And then we're going to try to find 10% each and every year. Now, it doesn't take a brain scientist to figure out you can't find 10% every year. Otherwise, you're down to zero. But we're going to
Actually, you're not. It's always 10% and 10%.
That's right. But we're going to try each and every year to find those wasteful programs, to find the wasteful spending.
And the more relevant point to your point, Mark, is that there are certain kinds of spending that are off limits unless you renegotiate, let's say, labor contracts.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have mandates the legislature sets for social services, which some of us would argue is a good thing. Yeah. But you're talking about 10% total by finding maybe 25% in the discretionary spending, correct?
That's exactly right. Now, why is it going to be different for me when I'm there, when I'm sitting at the table? Because, again, I'm doing this for the state of Connecticut. I'm doing this for the children who don't come back from college. I'm doing this to get back to where we were 20, 25 years ago, when we were the economic beacon in the Northeast. I don't care about being popular in the 4 years.
So is your slogan, vote for anyone but me in 4 years?
Well, look, if I do the job and I piss off people in the process, I'm not going to care about that. I'm going to do the job to make the state great as it once was. And that's my job.
And to hold you accountable on number one, Mark Greenberg, if you're elected, at the end of the first year, we should expect a document that shows 10% cuts in state spending, specific cuts that can really be made to bring down the cost of government.
That's right.
All right. Number two, I'll refuse a state pension.
Right.
In business, I lead by example, and that's what I intend to do as your next comptroller to help save Connecticut's taxpayer money. What I want to do is ask you a devil's advocate question about each of your points. So my devil's advocate question here is, isn't it easy for a guy who's independently wealthy to say no, whereas don't pensions serve a really good purpose, and that your example is not an important example for people who work hard for a living, don't make a lot of money, and need a pension?
Well, let's go back to the point of state government. It used to be that you would get a job with the state at 20% reduction from the private sector. You got stability, you got security, but you're working for less. And at the end of the day, you got a pension, which was reasonable and rational based upon what you were earning. That doesn't work anymore because now the state workers are making more than their counterparts in private government.
It's not always true. Depends what level.
Well,
if they're unionized and they're doing a blue-collar job, yes, because blue-collar workers no longer have unions for the most part, which isn't necessarily what we want in society. Higher-level positions, I would argue, they make less.
Well, okay, but also, we don't need a defined benefit program anymore. We need 401k, defined contribution going forward at least, not for the past people. But my point is, it's very easy for me to say I'm not going to take a pension. I recognize that. But you still have to lead by example. The pension that I might be taking would probably not be there anyway. I mean, we know that the pension fund is tremendously undercapitalized, whether it's $80 billion or $100 billion. How do we get out of that mess? So this is something that people will understand, that I'm putting my lack of money behind my mouth, okay? And I'm not going to accept a pension.
No, but you're talking about a very legitimate issue. We're arguing about what pensions should be right now in the state.
Yeah.
And I think we all agree Democrats and Republicans are complicit in the past for not having put money into the pension fund enough, and now we're facing ballooning costs for a long time. We also have older retirees who are responsible for the bulk of that cost, and we know that that's nobody's fault that people are living longer, or that the economy has changed. Healthcare is more expensive now, and the economy has changed, that we don't have as many younger people supporting them. Number three, Mark. Then we're going to get to someone posted who's a fan of your opponent, and we'll get to that. I'll vote no against more excessive borrowing. As a member of the State Bond Commission, I'll be a voice for fiscal responsibility and common sense. So that is an important part of your job description as comptroller. Besides watching the money, you vote on the Bond Commission. One question is, how many votes are there in that commission? Number two, let's come up with some examples of what you would have voted against, and I'm guessing beginning with the $10 million study on tolls.
Well, I'm one of 10 on the Bonding Commission. so I have one voice.
So you need to be an influential voice.
Yeah, I gotta convince some other folks, and I have to convince those folks why they should be voting no with me.
So you're gonna be a shrinking violet at the meeting. You're gonna speak up.
No, I'm gonna be very loud. I'm gonna say my position very clearly. I'm gonna get other votes. If I don't approve of a certain spending, then I'm going to be very vocal about it.
And this will go hand in hand with your other job of annually pointing out spending we shouldn't do.
Absolutely.
We have a high indebtedness in the state. Couple examples of what you would have voted no on.
Oh, here. I mean, okay, on the tolls, that's easy. Even Kevin Lembo voted no on that because he knew it was a protected vote. He knew that Malloy had the votes, and his no meant nothing. But I've got a lot of personal examples where I was hurt as a landlord by the vote on the bond commission. So I'll give you some examples. The bonding commission voted $5.6 million to give to a developer of a building in Waterbury, the Howland Hughes building, so that they could lure my present tenant, which is Post University, downtown, theoretically to revitalize downtown Waterbury, along with $2.5 million from the city of Waterbury. At the same time, Post University, which is my tenant, was negotiating with the new landlord of Howland Hughes. Post was negotiating with the present landlord for a building 250 feet down the block at 255 Bank Street. My building. And I had asked the state for not a penny.
What happened in the end? Did you keep Post?
No, I'm going to lose them. At the end of December, they're going to move to the
That's
Howland.
a larger point you and I have talked about before, where government picks winners. And this is not a Republican or Democratic idea because people's philosophies cross-party on this. Are you against the first five where we pick the five parties?
I don't like it. I don't like any of that stuff.
So you're saying one way you would increase the cost of government as well as our indebtedness, you would not invest state money in economic enterprises?
Well, the economic enterprises are essentially bribery.
The left calls it corporate welfare. The right calls it wasteful spending, picking winners.
I will give you another example. Oakleaf Waste Management moved 6 miles up to Windsor from my building in East Hartford because they had threatened to go south and take the jobs with them. I knew that was a lie because they were negotiating with me at the very same time for a 10-year extension. So this happens all the time. We don't need corporate welfare.
Government injects itself into the market and kind of skews how the process works.
It does, for sure.
Patrick Berlin writes in, does conducting a top-to-bottom audit in addition to what the state agency already tasked with auditing ironically create more waste? Patrick works in the office of First Selectman Kurt Miller, who's running for this position as well in Seymour. So he's saying another agency already does this. I think he's talking about the auditors. I meant to ask you
auditors. That's correct.
And auditors, Republican, Democrat, they're very respected.
Yeah.
They do a William Proxmire type thing, pick at problems and wasteful spending. So are you creating more waste, or even if you're not creating more waste, are you duplicating what's done?
No, because these are career politicians who are nominated.
The auditors?
Yeah. I mean,
I kind of thought they've done some very good polls over the years. As a reporter, their predecessors, what was his name? Jekyll. He was the guy from Stratford.
From my point of view, we need to have a business person who's been in business for 40 years do this kind of audit, not appointees of the governor. Okay?
So you're saying the people should be able to vote a watchdog?
Excuse me?
The people should be able to directly vote for a watchdog.
For who?
A watchdog.
A watchdog, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a fiscal pit bull.
Fiscal pit bull. And Berlin also asked, why did you buy a poll without disclosing you paid for it? What's he referring to?
Look, this is what happened there. It was very simple, okay? Cooper Communications, that does work for us, had called up our campaign and said there's no poll out there for the underticket, and there's nobody willing to pay for it. And they asked, would I pay for it to be able to see how we're doing and other people on the underticket? I said, yeah, I'd prefer not, but I will. We have no data to go by. So I did pay for it. I paid Cooper Communications, who then paid, can't remember who did the poll, but then he paid them. And I think the information that we got out of the poll was very helpful, not only for my race.
So how did you disclose it? Were they the ones because they paid to disclose it? What's Berlin getting at? What's your opponent getting at here?
I don't know.
Is it on your disclosure form that you?
It's going to be there.
Okay.
It absolutely is going to be there. I'm not hiding anything. And we had absolutely nothing to do with the poll, the questions, or anything like that.
Okay. Number 4 is all of this. We're talking to Mark Greenberg. He's running for Comptroller in Tuesday's primary, Republican primary. He's got a 9-point plan he's talking about today for the state, including stuff that he can actually do as Comptroller. Every year, number 4, every year I'll identify and publish 10% in wasteful spending, starting with my own office. Then I'll challenge the politicians in Hartford to implement these changes and cut the waste. We talked about this earlier this hour. But let me ask you, where is there going to be waste in your office?
Well, we may be overstaffed. Unfortunately, we're somewhat bound by the CBAC deal.
That's the state unions, and we talked about that.
Exactly
you're going to have to find more than 10% waste in non-discretionary.
But I'll tell you, I'm going to look at my office as well. I went to that office at 55 Elm Street in Hartford. I did a video there. And I saw all this big building filled with offices, some of the Comptroller and some other positions as well. But the budget for the Comptroller's office is huge.
Is there any lunch spots in any of your commercial real estate plazas?
Excuse me?
Do you have any lunch counters in any of your real estate plazas that you have?
Do I have any state?
Lunch counters, places to get lunch.
No.
Because I was thinking we could set up there. Set up the Comptroller's office there. Just have Mark talking about wasteful spending and cut on the rent.
Yeah, actually, in one of the buildings we have a cafeteria service, which I give to them for free, but it's a big building. And,
okay, so maybe we'll still be in Hartford. Number 5, I'll grade every state government department and agency. Sounds like if you get elected, there'll be some press coming out of your office. I'll grade every state government department and agency on their business-friendly policies, value of their state funding received, and quality of service to taxpayers. So, in other words, you're going to issue a grade how often to each department, and this is based on business friendliness.
Well, a bunch of things: business friendliness, delivering the services, delivering them efficiently without waste. And I haven't decided whether I'm going to give number grades or letter grades.
Okay. So, Mark, I get the point about the importance of saying, are you delivering your services well? For instance, do you need this many employees? And, the trick will be if you're going to be really specific and substantive about it. I'm wondering about business friendly. That often gets used as a synonym for not regulating. And often regulation gets in the way of business in ways that make no sense. And other times people would argue we need regulation so that companies don't take advantage of people. They don't pollute the environment. They don't cheat people out of wages.
Again, uniquely, I have real experience. I'm not just saying these things. For instance, I did a shopping plaza in Litchfield called Stop and Shop, grocery store. It was a redevelopment of a present plaza. We had to go to OSTA, Office of State Traffic Administration, and we had to resubmit traffic number of cars that go in and out of the plaza per day, estimated because it's not built yet, and whether the traffic light will accommodate. It took me 11 months to get OSTA's approval before I could put in a single foundation. Because
so I would argue, Mark, that what I hear as a reporter is I hear consensus from Democrats, Republicans, liberals, independents, conservatives, that often regulation does get in the way and doesn't serve a public purpose like that. And then I think there's an ideological difference on the importance of regulation for, like Republicans call not business-friendly environmental regulation, which again sometimes are stupid and don't accomplish what they want to accomplish, but that there is a fear among people who aren't conservative that the Koch brothers are funding this national effort at the state level to get out of the way of protecting public health.
Paul, I understand regulations. They should be reasonable. The people at OSTA, and I know those people very well. I've been dealing with Jim Jursic there on a number of projects. That's one that I just mentioned to you. Nice guy. I have his email. He takes the call all the time. The people in government are nice people. That's not what I mean by not business friendly. I mean, but 11 months.
No, I know you're not talking about nice people. You're talking about whether the regulations get in the way of creating jobs.
That's right. The checklist that I had to go through before I got the approval was huge. And he was just administering.
So you're saying here's a case where outsider can do better than someone who knows government on the inside because they know what it's like to be on the other side of regulation.
Right.
Because often outsiders an excuse for not knowing what they're doing.
Exactly right. The other thing, by the way, is we have a circumstance right now with DEEP on a project that I'm doing at
That's the Department of Environmental Energy and Environmental Protection.
For a fast-pitched nation, which is moving from Rensselaer Field to my property up there.
Oh.
And they're so bureaucratic that they basically told us, just go ahead and do it. We'll give you the permit later. This was after months. And I see this because I'm in business, and that's what's getting people frustrated. Not that the regulations.
What's Fast Pitch Nation?
What's that?
What's Fast Pitch Nation?
A women's soccer league. They had their opening of a major tournament at Dunkin' Donuts
and you got
Park.
them from Hartford, where the government built the park, right?
No, this was Rensselaer Field.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Dunkin' Donuts. Okay.
They're being evicted from those fields, and they're coming to 1001 Day Hill Road next year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you're listening to Dateline New Haven, WNHH-FM, live stream at 103.5 FM. And we're talking to Mark Greenberg, who's running Comptroller. Mark, I'm trying to strike a balance in this show I want to mostly talk about this 9-point plan you have running for office because it's very interesting. And I also, because your opponent was on recently, but you were on before, he has a staff person writing in questions to challenge you. I want to make sure that gets in the mix too, just for balance.
Sure.
Let's go first to number 6. I will refuse to certify any budget with typical Hartford accounting gimmicks. So what does it mean to certify a budget, and how is this different from the other elements of your plan?
Well, the certification of a budget is in the statute right now, and you have to make sure, I have to make sure that the numbers used are not phony.
What if you don't certify it? What happens?
That's a good question.
Does the budget still take effect?
You know something? I must say I don't know.
Because I don't know either. But I've never heard in state history where
out.
anyone was worried or the comptroller was going to sign off. Now, the comptroller is usually of the same party, but not always.
Yeah,
Under the Rowland administration, the comptroller was a Democrat.
That's correct.
Now, Rowland did do bipartisan budgets. He used to go with Tommy Ritter, the Democratic leader, in the back room, and George Epson, and strike it. So we got to find out what that means.
Yeah.
So we don't know whether this has any teeth.
Well, it certainly isn't.
It still serves a public purpose because you're gonna cast light on something you think. And by accounting gimmicks, is that different from what you're talking about before? Efficiency and wasteful spending, and more like, are you taking some spending offline?
Well,
spending cap.
You don't want to borrow for operating expenses. I mean, infrastructure should be paid with proper bonds, but you shouldn't be borrowing for that infrastructure. So the bottom line is, we're going to run the government as if it's run with GAAP or with business procedures.
Generally accepted accounting principles.
Exactly.
Okay, number 7. Let me put in one of Patrick Berlin's questions. Mark, are you a career politician too because you ran for Congress 3 times, and are you now running for another political office?
Am I a career politician? No, I didn't win. Number 1. Number 2, I'm a career businessman, a family of 5, and concerned about the state of Connecticut.
All right, number 7, Mark. I'll renegotiate state employee pension plans to bring them in line with the private sector because I owe no lobbyist anything. I want to get the biggest liability under control. How can a comptroller have any authority to renegotiate pension plans?
None, except that I could sit at a table and bring my ideas to the forefront, be a bit of a bully, suggest.
But a bully doesn't have. A bully has a big muscle. What kind of muscle does a comptroller have?
The controller, again, has these. Could either certify or not certify a budget. If there are gimmicks, I'm not going to certify. Okay.
What do the
we have
unions
to make
have
sure,
to fear?
for instance,
what does a union have to fear? What could you tell a union is at stake if you don't agree with them not reopening budget negotiations?
3 years, there are going to be a lot of folks are going to be fired, laid off. We have 4 years on the CBAC deal.
So you're talking about substance of your argument.
Well, unfortunately,
the
CBAC deal gave away a lot, unfortunately. Gave away a lot of our arrows in the quiver. So we have to wait another 3 years.
Okay, Grace Brangwyn. Grace, I apologize if I didn't pronounce your name right. Gives a wave and hello to you, Mark, and a message of support on Facebook. Thanks for listening, Grace. Mark, number 8 is I'll help reopen Connecticut to business, streamlining state government to make it easier to do business and serving as an ambassador to job creators across the country. Now, how does the comptroller do that? Do you have any authority to streamline, or is this back to your previous promises to issue wasteful spending reports and other examples of your government audits, just to kind of cast light and use that as the cudgel?
Well, for instance, you said that this great state has one of the best education systems in the country. Where do we promote that? Where do we tell the other 49 states we're better than you in this?
So how does the comptroller do that?
I'm going to be very vocal about the fact that we're not 50th or 49th in everything. We're a great state. We have a great location between New York and Boston. Some of us who are old enough remember when we were the beacon for economic activity in the Northeast. So I'm going to be the ambassador. For instance, everybody knows I love New York. What's our slogan?
Trying to think. Wait, give me a second. Staycation?
No. Okay, so that's how badly we promoted the state of Connecticut, okay? We don't promote it properly. So maybe the comptroller is going to promote the state of Connecticut if the governor doesn't properly. Remember, Paul, I've said I'm going to expand the job a bit, okay? The job hasn't worked for the past. It's been a rubber stamp. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to try to encourage businesses to come. I'll go with the governor. That's fine. I'm going to be the best spokesman for this state. And we're not business friendly. I've talked to you about Oyster. The bottom line is we got to streamline things. We have to tell these agencies, You can't take 11 months to do this. You got to do it in 3-4.
We got one more on your list. We got Nietzsche Batari. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Why did you say Kurt Miller raised Seymour taxes 20%, even though it's not true?
Well, the mill rate did go up. The first year that he was
that in conjunction, though, with the reassessment?
I don't know. I put in a call for that. That's possible.
Yeah.
That is possible. And I have a call in on that. The bottom line is he went into office on December 2011. The mill rate went up, actually 18.7, I think, percent, effective 7/1/2012 to 6/30/2013. And, well, that's just a fact.
But But combine that with reassessment. I don't know the answer to this question.
The answer is, it could be.
Because that could mean a 0% increase.
If the values of properties went down 17%, you're right.
Yeah.
Which would be also terrible for the town of Seymour.
Now he did get good. He gets good credit ratings. He does get good credit ratings to Seymour. They're saying he's running the government well.
Okay. By the way, 36 as a mill rate for a town of that size is not impressive. I will tell you. Watertown has a mill rate of something like 27. If you look at other communities of that population in the state of Connecticut, 36 is not impressive. Now, I'm not blaming Kurt Miller for that, but he's been in office now for 6.5 years, 7 years. You have to own it to a certain extent.
Okay, number 9 of the Mark Greenberg plan for the state. I'll take a stand against tolls. I'll vote no on toll studies. That's a reference to $10 million the bond commission just approved to study how to make tolls work. And stand up to the career politicians on behalf of Connecticut drivers. Now, the argument to push back, Mark, is that other states around us serve these tolls. People drive through our state, truckers and other drivers, and they pay tolls to everyone but us. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with also charging them on I-95 and
This is the problem, Paul. I'm not philosophically against tolls, which may be...
Tolls.
I'm philosophically against the state of Connecticut rating the various funds, which they do lovely. They do it beautifully. They raid the gas tax. They've raided the UST tax, the underground storage tank. What haven't they raided? I just don't trust this government. I just don't trust it. The first thing I want to do is bring down total spending by 10%. Let's bring down 10% the spending to $18 billion or something like that. Let's make sure that there's a real lockbox and not something that can be broken on the whim of a legislature.
Okay, so that's the 10-point plan that Mark Greenberg has to run for Comptroller. He's running in the Republican primary on Tuesday, August 14th against Kurt Miller, Kurt with a K. Look them both up on the web. Thank you for your questions, folks. So, Mark, your position basically is you're going to be a fiscal pit bull, as you put it. Use the position of Comptroller, which does have these responsibilities to highlight waste and inefficiency in government, put pressure for a smaller budget and a smarter government.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so folks, thanks for your questions. If today the New Haven Independent will have a roundup on the election coming up, we will give equal time to Mark Greenberg and Kurt Miller. We have interviewed both of them. We're going to have their videos and their links, and we're going to be coming back after an interlude with the Afro-Semitic Experience to talk to Patricia Melton and Jennifer Gonzalez of New Haven Promise. There's a big event coming up this week. A lot of news about helping kids get to college in Connecticut. Mark Greenberg, I love when you stop by.
Thank you very much.
And it's a pleasure interviewing both you and Kurt Miller. I think you're both gentlemen, and you're running interesting campaigns for state comptroller. And I hope everyone goes out and votes tomorrow. Folks, sit tight. Hang with us. We'll be right back on the rebound.